Hi there, and these comments are for GB, and I am Michael, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-Step System to Pass a TOEFL IBT. It is January 15th, 2018, and you're one of my TOEFL Writing Bootcamp students, and I'm error correcting an independent writing practice test. Now, you're really close here. You're between about 3.5 and 3.75. So you're right around 22 to 24 points out of 30 on the writing task, this particular writing task. In this video, I'm going to take what you've written and I'm going to error correct it and show you the changes that you need to make in order to get a perfect score of 5.5 out of 5 or 30 points out of 30. Here's a question. Many students have to live with roommates while going to school or university. You're using here plural, right? So I'm going to make this plural word also. So while going to schools, universities. So what are some of the important qualities of a good roommate? Use specific reasons, examples. Okay, here we go. I'm going to make this plural. Universities are an essential part of a student's life where he or she, we have gains, that's subject-verb agreement, right? Okay, I'm going to write down some of the problems you're having here, and then we'll look at them at the end. So he or she gains the knowledge needed to build a future. A student faces many challenges when you want to put here going, so you've reduced that adverb clause. So you either have two choices. You could say, a student faces many challenges when he or she goes to a college or when going to a college. In this case, to give you a little bit more advanced grammar, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say one of which. So you're not having just two short sentences there. So one of which is to share space and time with a roommate. Okay, I'm just writing down some notes here. Okay, through many qualities that a roommate might have, I consider the trust, responsibility, and the ability to stay clean and neat as, I'm just going to say clean and neat. No need to say organized in there. It all kind of means the same thing. Clean is kind of sanitary, where you're not making messes that draws bacteria and things of that nature. So I think just say trust, responsibility, and how about this? Cleanliness and neatness as the most crucial virtues for a dignified. So you want to use an adjective here, right? So dignify is actually a verb. So sometimes when we're changing a word to an adjective, we can put an ed on it and we can use it in that sense. But you can't put a verb directly in front of a noun. You have to change it somehow to make it work. That's why I said crucial virtues for a dignified roommate. Okay, those are the changes I would make to this first paragraph. And how many we have here? You could probably develop this a little bit more. However, this time I noticed you're using 3 body paragraphs, not too. So that's a good thing, right? In your second paragraph, you say, first of all, a good roommate should be trustworthy. Because a student shares the space with a roommate, you want to put is considered there. So passive voice. Be careful. We form passive voice through using the be verb and the past participle. So it is considered that the roommate this is too wordy. I would just say here, because a student shares a space with a roommate, he or she, I'm going to say will have access to the belongings of the other student. For instance, at school, I think here, because you're talking about something in the past, I'm going to make this more clearly in the past. Then we'll say shared, right? So we have, for instance, at school in the past, I shared my apartment with other students. Let's combine these sentences, create a little bit more advanced grammar. And I remember that in the beginning, I was anxious that my roommate could touch, take away, or use my belongings. This is going to work better. You see what I did here? So for instance, at school in the past, I shared my apartment with other students, and I remember. So I'm using what's called a compound complex sentence here. So sometimes you tend to use a little bit more basic, shorter type sentence structures, and you want to try to go beyond that, I think, with university type writing proficiency. I remember that in the beginning, I was anxious that my roommate could touch, take away, or use my belongings. As a jewelry lover, I always kept much jewelry with me, which was not just costly, but also memorable things that my parents gifted to me, or just say gifted me on different occasions. So in this case, jewelry is kind of like a collective noun. Jewelry refers to a lot of different kinds of jewelry: rings, necklaces, bracelets, things that you pin on your shirt, and so on. So I'm going to use a collective noun here as singular. Okay, so you have, and notice how I didn't put a comma before but also, because you're not using but to join separate sentences together. You're just saying that I kept much jewelry with me, which was not just costly, but also memorable things that my parents gifted me on different occasions. Now, to make this a little more formal, I'm going to say thus. If you put so in the beginning of your sentence, it makes it less formal, because so is a coordinating conjunction. It's normally used, Gladiola, to combine or to connect two independent clauses together, as in a compound sentence. You say, thus, a trustful roommate relieves, and you're saying I, right? A trustful roommate will relieve me from these worries that might come my way during the time that I live. What I'm doing is I'm trying to keep this paragraph all using the same point of view. Notice in the beginning, I shared, I remember, I kept, will relieve me that might come my way during the time that I live. So it is this consistency in point of view that helps create a coherent organization to this paragraph. So be careful about awkward shifts from first, second, or third person point of view. Okay, this paragraph could probably be developed a little bit more, right? No, it's good. It's 100 words, right? And you also have 3 body paragraphs. Let's take a look at the next one. So you say in the first one, you say first of all. So to be parallel with this, say second of all. So in that way, you're keeping your transition words similar. Okay, let's go to your next paragraph. So second of all, a good virtue that a roommate must have is to be responsible. Living and sharing a room or apartment means that I need to be accountable for my actions that might interfere in the life of the person living with me. Now, you've done something very, very clever here. You use the word accountable, which is a synonym for the word responsible, and that is very good. So you're rephrasing a key idea from your topic sentence in order to maintain unity in the paragraph. So very good with that. See, for example, one of my roommates, I'm going to say in my second year, I'm going to just say at college, so I don't think the college is going to work here. I'll tell you for a couple of reasons here. You're mentioning college for the very first time, which means it's new information in this paragraph. So we use the college to talk about information which has already been established. And because you're bringing this up for the first time in this paragraph, either you can say at a college or you can probably say college. So you say, for example, one of my roommates, you want to make this plural. This is... you want to say, one of my roommates in my second year at college was always late at night and always preferred to study at night, keeping the light on when I was sleeping. This bothered me much, and I often asked her to change these behaviors, which caused me to lose sleep at night. This is causing some communication errors. I'm going to say here, you say which caused me to be wide awake at night, or which caused me, I'm going to say to lose sleep at night. And I'm going to say to not be able to concentrate on the next day's This example taught me how important it is that a roommate be responsible for his or her actions. I'm going to make this plural. And how important it is for me to consider, I'm going to say here, not reliable, but responsible. Reliable, responsible. It's like you can depend on somebody, so not exactly the same thing. So I'm going to repeat this word you put in the topic sentence, right? So this example taught me how important it is that a roommate be responsible for his or her actions, and how important it is for me to consider a responsible student to share my maybe living spaces at school. That's probably what I would say right there. Okay, so we have another aspect is that an acceptable roommate must be clean and neat. But you're not just adding to these ideas, you're coming to a conclusion. Notice how you have first of all, second of all. Here you have two choices. You could say third of all, or you could say finally, or in conclusion, or to sum up or something. And because you said in summary in the next paragraph, I'm going to change this to third of all. Another aspect just get rid of all that and just say acceptable roommates must be clean and neat. Go back to the question, which is an important quality. Must have the vital and what I'm doing is I'm making sure that this of being clean and neat, I'm making sure that this ties back to your writing purpose, right? So acceptable roommates must have the vital quality of being clean and neat. Notice I said vital quality. You said good virtue here, which ties back to your writing prompt. You also said in the very beginning, we have what are the important qualities of a good roommate, right? Or we could maybe change if we wanted to. We could say the vital. How about this? The attribute of being clean and neat, because students will share many things together. This is a problem with your sentence formation. You're saying because students will share many things together is critical. No. You want to put a comma here and then put it is critical that a roommate fulfill this requirement. So I think the it is, you need to get familiar with the it is sentence structure formation. So you've had numerous problems with this, I think, in previous essays. So you really got to get a grip on how to do this. But the main thing you want to learn here is because students will share many things together, this is a dependent clause. Yes, it has a connector here, then it has a subject, and then it has a verb here. But this is a dependent clause. It means that you must attach this to an independent clause. The independent clause needs to have a subject and a verb in it, which you did not have in there. So you got to be careful about that. See, as I mentioned, in previous occasions at schools, I had to share my apartment with a roommate. One of my best roommates was Emily, which was, no, who? What can you learn here? We use which to refer to things and who to refer to people. Okay, who was so clean and neat. Who is so clean and neat, so that it made my life easier at the dormitory. This is called parallelism. Now, you should be taking notes here as I'm giving you these problems. So, you said so. Usually, we use so with that. So, that's why I said one of my best roommates was Emily, who was so clean and neat that it made my life easier at the dormitory. We both agreed to share the cleaning of the kitchen. I'm going to put the bathrooms and the living room, which assured us a clean, cozy And again, we want to change welcome to an adjective. I'm going to say welcoming. So clean, cozy, and welcoming place to live and study at the college. And this is your example to help illustrate your point, which is good, right? So in summary, an excellent roommate for me should be trustworthy, responsible. I'm going to put and clean and neat. Probably don't have to use organized here. To deserve a shared space in a dormitory with other students. These qualities are fundamental for a good quality roommate and should be seriously maintained to keep the right environment in a dormitory and to facilitate, I'm going to use an apostrophe S here, a student's life. Okay, I think we're good. We have it. I made some changes here, so we're moving in the right direction. Okay, let's read the essay one more time, and then I'll go over some of the editing issues that have come up in this particular writing assignment. Okay, so universities are an essential part of a student's life. Now, before we get going, let's see. Your word length is actually pretty good on this one, so let's see how many words you actually wrote here. Yeah, that's fine. 486 words, that's perfect. If you can do that on the TOEFL test in 30 minutes, I'm telling you, it's going to help you get a really good score. Okay, so universities are an essential part of a student's life where he or she gains the knowledge needed to build a future. A student faces many challenges when going to a college, one of which is to share space and time with a roommate. Through many qualities that a roommate might have, I consider trust, responsibility, and cleanliness and neatness as the most crucial virtues for a dignified roommate. First of all, a good roommate should be trustworthy. Because a student shares a space with a roommate, he or she will have access to the belongings of the other student. For instance, at school in the past, I shared my apartment with other students, and I remember that in the beginning I was anxious that my roommate could touch, take away, or use my belongings. As a jewelry lover, I always kept much jewelry with me, which was not just costly, but also memorable things that my parents gifted me on different occasions. Thus, a trustful roommate will relieve me from these worries that might come my way during the time that I live with. Instead of using maybe roommate here, we can put him or her. Okay, second of all, a good virtue the roommate must have is to be responsible. Living and sharing a room or apartment means I need to be accountable for my actions that might interfere with the life of the person living with me. For example, one of my roommates in my second year at college was always late at night and also preferred to study at night, keeping the light on when I was sleeping. This bothered me much. And often I asked her to change these behaviors, which caused me to lose sleep at night and not to be able to concentrate on the next day's lectures. This example taught me how important it is that a roommate be responsible for his or her actions and how important it is for me to consider a responsible person to share my living spaces at school. All right, let's take a look at our next paragraph. Third of all, acceptable roommates must have the vital attribute of being clean and neat. Because students will share many things together, it is critical that a roommate fulfill this requirement. As I mentioned in previous occasions at schools, I had to share my apartment with a roommate. One of my best roommates was Emily, who was so clean and neat that it made my life easier at the dormitory. We both agreed to share the cleaning of the kitchen, the bathrooms, and the living room, which assured us a clean, cozy, and welcoming place to live and study at the college. In summary, An excellent roommate for me should be trustworthy, responsible, and clean and neat to deserve a shared space in a dormitory with other students. These qualities are fundamental for a good quality roommate. And maybe because we said qualities, don't need to repeat this. That's my mistake. For a good roommate, and should be seriously maintained to keep a right environment in a dormitory and to facilitate a student's life. All right, so there we go. So now the question is, what are some editing issues? What are some things that you want to work on in order to improve your writing proficiency? Number one, plural nouns. You need to really get a grip, need to improve on when nouns need to be singular or plural. Right? So if you want to go to Google, here are some key words. Count and uncount nouns, singular versus plural nouns in English grammar. You can review that. Number two, very difficult. This is not easy. I'm going to recommend that you go to Google and type in the keywords using a and the articles in English grammar. Or you can put the keywords article usage in English grammar. You need to review this. So if you're not sure, don't use an article. If you're not sure, don't use one. Okay, number three, subject-verb agreement. You had at least 3 different problems with subject-verb agreement in this particular essay. So go to Google, subject-verb agreement rules in English grammar, especially when you're talking about collective nouns or singular nouns versus plural nouns, some of those things. Number 4, adjective clause connectors. Specifically, who versus which. And you remember what I put, one of which? I combine those 2 sentences. So you need to understand a little bit more on how to use adjective clauses. So again, go to Google. Here are the key words. Adjective clauses, who versus which in English grammar, and then adjective clauses in English grammar. Number 5, parallelism. Even with your transition words, remember first of all, second of all, third of all, you want to make those parallel. And we also talked about so plus that. You have such plus as, either plus or, neither plus nor. So how about this? Parallelism and paired conjunctions in English grammar. Those are some good keywords for you. Or parallelism in academic writing. That would be a good one for you. Number 6 is passive voice. Go to Google, forming passive voice in English grammar. Number 7, verb tenses. The main thing for you here is to help make it easier for your reader. You remember how I changed it to something like, last, in the past when I lived with roommates. Make sure you have some clear time phrases in there to help identify your verb tenses, and then make sure you're consistent. So if you want to check out this, here are some keywords. Present perfect versus simple past in English grammar. Number 8, point of view shifts. You remember how you're shifting from I to you? So here's what you can look at in Google. Inappropriate point of view shifts in academic writing. Okay, number 9 is forming it sentence constructions. Maybe even look at there. So forming it and their sentence constructions. Number 10, being more concise. Sometimes you're a little bit redundant or you're repetitive or you have unnecessary words within your sentence. So being more concise. I think you've already looked at this at my website. So if you want to go to Google, being more concise in academic writing, you can take a look at that. Number 11 is forming complex sentences. It means that you understand the basic idea of a simple sentence, but once you start combining that with dependent clauses and things, you're not exactly sure how to do it. So here are the key words. Complex sentences in English grammar. You can take a look at that. So those are 11 areas that you definitely can improve upon in your writing, right? So let's go back to the beginning. So I'm going to go with my score 3.5 out of 5 now, 22 points out of 30 after correcting all of the errors in here. I think because of some of these word choice, sentence structure, and grammatical errors, I think your score will probably be a little bit below 24 points, at least for this independent writing task. All right? And thank you for doing this essay.